And welcome to another update. In this one, I'll be covering the whole front line, starting out in the south, where in the Uledar area, there has not been a lot of reports from this area. However, there has recently come out some footage from a drone showing incendiary bombardment of Uledar, the type of phosphorus type bombs where there's a lot of micro explosions and all of them blow up into a fire. And that was recorded in Uledar in the past couple of days. So Russia is continuing their heavy bombardment of the city here in the southwest. Then we see fighting continuing in the direction of Novobakhmutivka, Pobieda, Marinka, north of Marinka, in the direction of Nevelske, center of Pervomaiske, to the north of Pervomaiske, to the north of Vodiane, to the north of Opitne in the direction of Avdiivka, and to the east of Avdiivka in the direction of Kamyanka. And according to Wargonso, there are some fighting here by Novobakhmutivka by the railway junction. So I'm guessing this part here where the Eastern Railway connects with the Central Railway. But I put a question mark because that is somewhat a very far distance from the front line as I reported. So I'm just going to put it out there as something that was reported, but I don't actually think it is true. So I put it as a question mark. So essentially fighting continues here on the whole front line as the Russian forces continue their operational attacks to better their positions and prevent any Ukrainian attacks in this area. Then we move on to the Bakhmut front where very significant updates continue to come. So I have added larger gray zones here within the city for all unconfirmed reports. So all the confirmed reports I have added both to the map and also the recap, while unconfirmed reports I just put as a gray zone so that I do not report that it is taken, but I know that there's the possibility that it has been based on preliminary reports. And why has there significantly been an increase of gray zones? That is because in the past couple of days, there has been significant weather changes within Bakhmut. It is to the point where the snow has been, according to Ukrainian sources, the largest snowfall in over a decade. So there's a lot of snow, which makes it very difficult for drones to fly around and at the same time difficult for infantry to gather in large groups. However, the Wagner soldiers had already prepared for such a scenario, or you could say they got extremely lucky, because just prior to this weather shift, the Wagnerians gathered their troops and focused them on Bakhmut. So they removed troops from the flanks, from the north and the south, and put them into the city itself, both the north and the south of the city. And they replaced these troops with Russian troops who then came in to reinforce these flanks. So now most Wagner soldiers are within the city itself. So with this large concentration of Wagner soldiers and the sudden weather shift, which makes it very difficult for the Ukrainian forces to enter these areas, which means that the Russian forces have a significant numerical superiority within the city. And then the Wagner soldiers took advantage of the weather changes to launch a large-scale offensive. And that is why I say that it is very difficult to actually confirm whether they have taken these areas or not, because drones have a hard time flying right now, which means we'll see much less drone footage. And at the same time, the fighting is so intense that it is very difficult for anyone to take a break within this fighting. So there's no time to report on what's happening, take videos and all of these things that they usually do. That's not happening because of the intense fighting. So essentially what we're seeing right now is that there's intense fighting all over the front line. In the past day, the recent territorial changes have been that the Russian forces have captured this parking lot and that they've managed to take a further part of the residential area and of this Assam Steel plant industrial zone itself, according to a deep state map. And at the same time, we see fighting here on the eastern parts by the western bank of the Bakhmut River. And at the same time, they are fighting across the whole front to the south as they try to advance across the whole front here in this area. And according to some reports, the fighting may even have reached the Hotel Bakhmut, so by the stadium here to the center of the city. And at the same time, we also hear reports of this whole area to the south being taken and the area to the west being taken. So there's a lot of preliminary reports about Wagnerian advances, and that the fighting is so heavy that it could go either way in the current state. But essentially, the current fighting is the hardest it has been despite the snow. So the current situation is that there's no clear reports on what territories has or has not been taken, but the fighting is definitely the hardest it has been in a very long time, and there's a lot of close quarter combat by both sides as the Wagnerians are storming the Ukrainian positions now that they have the ability to launch these attacks without the Ukrainians knowing beforehand. Make sure to leave a like on my video and subscribe if you want to help me out and see more of my content. If you're watching from your phone, you just have to exit full screen and click on the subscribe button. Thank you very much. Why am I asking this of you? Because as you can see here, 66.3% of my viewers from the last 28 days are not subscribed. And if we look at the very top, most of my viewers are returning viewers. That means you have watched my videos before, yet you are not subscribed. You watch my videos every day and you're not subscribed. It's one click of a button and it helps me out a lot. And thank you very much to everyone who's already subscribed. I really appreciate it. Then we move on to the northwest of the city by Khomove. Here, fighting has also been reported to be very significant. The same with the south of Ivanivske, where the Ukrainian forces are slowly pushing the Russian forces back by the western and central parts here to the south of the village. And at the same time, we see fighting here to the west by Bohdanivka and Hryhorivka, where here the fighting is mainly artillery oriented rather than close quarter combats or storm fights here we see in the center of the city. And at the same time, we have seen a video of Ukrainian forces here in the high-rise area to the southwest of the city. And this was confirmed to be not that old as there was snow in the video, but it was the first day of snow as the snow hadn't fallen that hard yet. But since that video, there has fallen further snow. And again, I do not show videos on my YouTube videos because YouTube censors those videos, it gets demonetized and so on. So to stay monetized and not get community strikes, I am leaving these footages on the map and on my Telegram for you to check out for yourself. Then we see further fighting here by Orehovo-Vasilivka and north of Selesnyansk, as well as by the E40 highway as the Russian forces continue trying to gain better positions by these areas. And most forces here have been replaced from Wagner soldiers to now be Russian army soldiers. So we may see a stalemate by these areas and then a change of operations as the rotation finishes. And also a very important point is that the Ukrainians had been preparing for a counteroffensive, and any such offensive has now been ruled out completely, as after the snowfall, the snow will now melt today because there's both sun and high degrees Celsius, 13 degrees Celsius, between 13 and 6 degrees Celsius, which means the snow will melt. And then tomorrow we see rain, Tuesday we see sun, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday we see rain. So there's a lot of rain, so the mud will return to be as severe as it used to be a couple of weeks ago when we saw a lot of vehicles and a lot of soldiers getting stuck in the mud. So essentially any possible counterattack by the Ukrainians in Bakhmut will be at the very least delayed by a couple of weeks, which means that the current Wagner storming of the city is actually very significant because they may be aiming to push the Ukrainians completely out of the center of the city, drastically decreasing the front line within the city itself and improving their ability to fortify their flanks to prepare for Ukrainian counteroffensive and to have a better chance at dispersing such an offensive. Then we move on to the Siversk front, where here fighting continues by Spirne as well as Verkhnokamianske and Bilorivka as the Russian forces attempt to improve their positions in this area. Fighting also continues by the Kreminna front, where the Russian forces are attacking both by the Serebryansky forest areas as well as in the direction of Zarishne, west of Chernypopivka, both to the southwest and the northwest, in the direction of Loshanka, to the west in the direction of Nevske, as well as south of Novodiane in the direction of Makivka. And something very interesting is that there's also some footage of a Russian TOS system shooting Ukrainian positions right here by the road intersection. So my mapping is fairly accurate. That is nice to know. And that is all for this update. Thank you all for watching and have a great day.